Hey there, gaming enthusiasts! Welcome to Gaming Axia, your go-to source for all amazing action RPG games. Fantasy has always been the heart and soul of RPGs, especially action RPGs. And today, I'm bringing you a list of the 25 best fantasy action RPGs that you absolutely must play. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's get started. On number 25, we have Granblue Fantasy Relink. It's a fast-paced, over-the-top action RPG that checks all the classic JRPG boxes, big bosses, bigger swords, and a story that takes itself just seriously enough to be cool. Right from the start, Relink throws you into a wild world where islands float in the sky, and combat is a neon explosion of magic and flying numbers. It's got that stylish anime fight scene where logic takes a back seat. At first, it might look overwhelming, but once you get the hang of it, it's ridiculously fun. And if you're playing with friends, it's even better, though matchmaking can be hit or miss. On number 24, we have Last Epoch. It's a deep and flexible isometric action RPG where you experiment with crazy builds. There are 5 starting classes, each with 3 advanced masteries, giving you a total of 15 subclasses to mix and match. You can respec and tweak your abilities at any time, so it's all about testing different playstyles until you find what clicks. At one point, you can make a low-health glass cannon build. Then you can switch it to a tanky Reaper form that gives you a second health bar, kind of like turning yourself into a 2-stage Souls boss. The level of customization here is insane. On number 23, we have GreedFall. It's an action RPG that feels like a blast from the past in the best way possible. If you love games like Dragon Age Origins or The Witcher, this might be right up your alley. It's got deep storytelling, fun combat, and a world full of political intrigue. The game throws you into a world inspired by the Age of Exploration, where different factions are colonizing a mysterious island called Tyr Frady. The different factions all have their own motives, and the native tribes aren't just one group. They have their own cultures, disagreements, and responses to the colonizers. There's no morality system forcing you to pick a side. It's all about how you want to handle things. On number 22, we have Lies of P. It's a game that takes the dark, gothic style of Bloodborne and adds its own unique twist. This game is a dark reimagining of Pinocchio. I mean, the setting is already cool enough. Now, let's talk about what really makes this game shine: the combat. If you love fast, precise, and punishing fights, you're in for a treat. You can choose from 3 starting builds: balance, dexterity, or strength. But the real fun starts when you get to customize your weapons. Each weapon is split into a blade and a handle, and you can mix and match them however you want. Combine this with a deep dodge and parry system, and every fight feels like a mix of strategy and skill. On number 21, we have Final Fantasy XV, a game that mixes epic fantasy with a modern road trip adventure. One of the coolest things about this game is how it blends fantasy with real-world elements. One moment, you're chilling at a gas station eating burgers, and the next, you're fighting massive, physics-defying monsters. The game starts off as an open-world adventure, letting you explore freely. But about halfway through, the story takes a sharp turn. It becomes more focused, with smaller areas and a heavier emphasis on character development. Some people love this shift, others don't, but it definitely keeps things interesting. On number 20, we have Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Who says RPGs have to sacrifice gameplay to tell a great story? This isn't your typical RPG click-and-watch system. It's real-time, action-packed, and super satisfying. Whether you're slicing through enemies with a massive sword, zipping around as a rogue, or raining down fireballs as a mage, the combat just feels good. On top of that, the game's world is huge, but unlike Skyrim or Fallout, it's more structured, open enough to explore, but not overwhelming, and there is so much to do. There is actually a remaster of this game, but let's just say it doesn't quite live up to expectations. On number 19, we have Fable series. This game almost feels like the anti-Dark Souls. By Fable 2, you literally couldn't die in combat. But don't be fooled, Fable isn't actually easy. It's a beautiful mess, a wild blend of ideas that somehow just works. But here's the thing, Fable isn't about being a hero, it's about being you. You are not just saving the kingdom, but deciding how to do it. What will you wear? What will you fight with? How many people will you marry? Even morality in Fable is more about aesthetics than real consequences. Good or evil, it mostly just changes how you look. On number 18, we have Kingdom Hearts series. It's the game that dares to mix Final Fantasy with Disney, which, let's be honest, sounds completely wild. And it kinda is, but somehow it works. First off, if you're looking to play Kingdom Hearts today, you have options. It originally launched on PS2 in 2002, but now the best way to play is the Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix collection. It's got upgraded graphics, extra content, and it works on modern consoles. I have to say, Kingdom Hearts is a classic for a reason. It's a magical mix of RPG adventure, action combat, and nostalgic Disney goodness. On number 17, we have Black Myth: Wukong. This game is an action RPG that blends elements of both Souls-like games and traditional adventure games. No matter which camp you fall into, this game is an absolute spectacle. Whether you're looking for challenging fights against mythical Chinese creatures or just an epic journey with a bit more breathing room than a typical Souls-like, there's a lot to enjoy. But what truly separates Black Myth: Wukong from other games in the genre is its incredible presentation and sheer attention to detail. Every moment feels cinematic, every creature feels majestic, and every environment looks like a moving painting. On number 16, we have Grim Dawn. It's an action RPG that brings fast-paced combat, endless loot, and a dark horror fantasy world that pulls you in from the very start. Grim Dawn has everything ARPG fans looking for, but it also brings enough new ideas to stand out from the crowd. It's gory, it's intense, and once you start playing, it's hard to stop. The enemies in Grim Dawn are some of the coolest you'll see in any game like this. You'll fight creepy cultists, undead warriors, giant monsters, and bizarre creatures that look like they belong in a horror movie, and just when you think you've seen it all, the game surprises you with something new and terrifying. On number 15, we have the Tales series. The Tales series is mostly made up of standalone games with only a few direct sequels. That means you can jump in at almost any point, but some games make better introductions than others. At its core, Tales games blend classic JRPG storytelling with action-packed combat. While Tales games always have epic stories, it's the characters that make them unforgettable. Every game features a cast that grows over time, often forming a found family dynamic. One of the series' best features is skits, short, optional conversations between characters. They can be funny, emotional, or insightful, helping to flesh out the cast. Skits have been a defining part of the series and a big reason why fans get so attached to the characters. On number 14, we have Hogwarts Legacy. At its core, Hogwarts Legacy is a familiar kind of open-world RPG. It follows the same formula we've seen in other big-budget games, but what sets it apart is how well it captures the magic of its world. This is Harry Potter's Arkham Asylum moment, a game that tells its own story, set in a beloved universe, without the constraints of being a direct movie tie-in. And for the most part, it absolutely nails it. For fans of Harry Potter, this is the game they've always wanted. On number 13, we have Final Fantasy XVI. As a Final Fantasy game, this game immediately stood out to me with its darker and more intense story. It's one of the biggest shifts the series has ever seen. The combat system takes inspiration from Devil May Cry, moving far away from the RPG mechanics of previous entries. It's fast, stylish, and incredibly satisfying. While the standard combat is already great, it takes things to another level with its Akon versus Akon battles. These are some of the most jaw-dropping moments I've ever seen in a video game. They start as massive cinematic showdowns, but as the game progresses, they become full-fledged battles that test your skills in unique ways. On number 12, we have Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. It's a game that instantly feels familiar, but manages to stand out in its own way. Imagine an Assassin's Creed-style adventure set in the dark and dangerous lands of Lord of the Rings. You climb towers, sneak through enemy camps, and take down foes with smooth and deadly combat. The challenge comes from the sheer number of enemies. Hordes of Uruks will surround you, and unlike some action games where you can easily take on large groups, here, you're often forced to retreat, regroup, and rethink your approach. The AI isn't perfect. Sometimes Uruks are hilariously oblivious to your actions, but the thrill of sneaking into a camp and wiping out an entire patrol without being seen never gets old. On number 11, we have Dragon's Dogma: Dark Arisen. At first, Dragon's Dogma might seem intimidating, especially if you're expecting a brutally difficult experience like Dark Souls. But while it has its challenges, it's not designed to punish you. The combat feels weighty and satisfying. Basic sword swings have impact, spells feel powerful, and archery is precise. One of the coolest features is the ability to climb on large enemies like chimeras, cyclops, and dragons, hacking away at weak spots just like in Shadow of the Colossus. It can be a bit clunky at times, but when it works, it feels incredible. On number 10, we have Monster Hunter series. Monster Hunter first came out on the PlayStation 2 in 2004, starting what would become one of Capcom's biggest game series. The main goal of Monster Hunter is simple: hunt monsters. But every hunt is a real challenge. You have to track down these massive creatures, learn how they fight, dodge their attacks, and find the right moment to strike. Instead of leveling up like in other RPGs, your progress comes from improving your skills, upgrading weapons, and crafting better gear. All the main Monster Hunter games are great, and it's especially exciting because the newest one, Monster Hunter Wilds, is coming out soon. On number 9, we have Diablo series. It's one of the most legendary action RPGs ever made, bringing fast-paced dungeon crawling, epic loot, and dark fantasy storytelling to gamers worldwide. Created by Blizzard North and later continued by Blizzard Entertainment, the series has 4 main games: Diablo 1 to Diablo 4, along with expansions like Lord of Destruction, Reaper of Souls, and Vessel of Hatred. Since its debut, Diablo has influenced countless other RPGs. Its villain Diablo is one of gaming's most iconic characters, and the series' impact on the action RPG genre is unmatched. On number 8, we have Bloodborne. Of all the Soulsborne games, Bloodborne feels the most modern. Its world, Yharnam, is inspired by Victorian London, making it more advanced than the medieval kingdoms of Dark Souls, Demon's Souls, or Elden Ring. But Bloodborne pushes further than just its setting. Its trick weapons and firearms feel more advanced. While Elden Ring does have massive war machines like the Flame Chariots, they are rare, whereas Bloodborne embraces technology more openly. On number 7, we have Path of Exile 2. This game really does feel like the Dark Souls of ARPGs. Why? Because from the very start, Path of Exile 2 doesn't let you adjust the difficulty, it starts hard by default. Unlike Diablo, where the challenge only really kicks in at the end game, Path of Exile 2 makes you work from the get-go. Boss fights, brutal. Expect to die, adjust your build, grind some gear, and die again until you finally take them down. And let me tell you, that victory feels good. If you love experimenting with builds, this game will blow your mind. The number of possible combinations feels almost limitless, and you'll be discovering new synergies for months, if not years. On number 6, we have Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. It's one of the best remake in gaming history. This game looks stunning. The lighting, the soft color tones, the cinematic cutscenes, everything feels incredibly polished. But let's talk about combat. It's fast, strategic, and rewarding. It balances action and turn-based strategy, and in Rebirth, it introduces team synergy mechanics, allowing characters to combine attacks for huge bonuses. There are tons of ways to build your party, from materia combos to weapon upgrades, and hard mode is no joke. Some of the endgame challenges push your skills to the absolute limit. On number 5, we have Dark Souls series. If you've ever played an action RPG that pushed you to your limits, chances are Dark Souls had something to do with it. The game is famous for its challenging gameplay, deep world building, and intense boss fights. Instead of easy modes, Dark Souls made challenge part of the experience, proving that dying can be fun as long as you learn from it. Many people call Dark Souls as one of the greatest games of all time, and with over 37 million copies sold, its impact on gaming is undeniable. But Dark Souls didn't just stay within its own series, it inspired an entire genre, leading to the creation of the Souls-like genre. On number 4, we have Dragon Age Inquisition. This game is huge, filled with quests, exploration, and choices that make every playthrough feel different. You'll spend hours immersing yourself in this game. As for the gameplay, while you can play this as an action RPG, you can pause combat at any time, switch between party members, and issue commands using the tactical camera, letting you plan battles like a real-time strategy game. If you prefer action, you can also just hack, slash, and cast spells in real time. All in all, Inquisition is a masterpiece. Just ignore Veilguard and replay this instead. On number 3, we have The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. This game is a masterpiece. The Witcher 3 is one of the best action RPGs out there. It's massive, detailed, and full of life. Every town, village, and ruin has a history. Every monster has a reason for being there. The game doesn't just throw random enemies at you, it gives them a backstory. Even years after release, The Witcher 3 holds up as one of the best games ever. The next-gen update made it look even better, but the core game was already timeless. It's a game that sticks with you. The world, the stories, the choices, it's one of those experiences where you don't just play, you live in it. On number 2, we have Elden Ring, the game that took the gaming world by storm and set a new standard for open-world action RPGs. From Software took their signature Soulsborne formula and said, let's go bigger, let's go harder. And oh boy, they delivered. This isn't your typical map with a million icons type of game. The world is yours to explore. No hand-holding, no quest markers, just pure adventure. And of course, the biggest highlight of the game is its boss fights. Each battle feels like an epic showdown against powerful demigods, testing your skills, patience, and strategy. Every fight is intense, challenging, and unforgettable. On number 1, we have The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. If there's one game that defines epic fantasy RPGs, it's Skyrim. Even years after its release, it remains one of the most immersive, ambitious, and unforgettable adventures in gaming. Skyrim's RPG mechanics are deep but easy to grasp. Instead of picking a rigid class at the start, your skills improve naturally as you play. Sneak more, you'll get better at stealth, use a sword often, your one-handed skill levels up. This organic progression makes every decision feel rewarding. And of course, people are still playing it after all these years thanks to the modding community. It has kept the game alive. There are new lands, new quests, new mechanics, even mods that turn Skyrim into Star Wars, making the game feel endless. And there you have it, fellow gamers. Which game is your favorite? Did we miss one that deserves a spot on the list? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more epic gaming content, and ring that bell so you're always up to date on the latest and greatest games. Until next time, and happy gaming!